All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the HiFi Summit Day 1. The journey to the top continues with Tommy from Digital Amp Company. What's up, Tommy? How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much. How are you?
Happy belated, Tommy.
Yeah, it was
Thank you
his
very
birthday
much.
yesterday. We just found out. Happy belated.
Woo woo.
All
Yeah.
right,
Thank you, guys.
no
All
problem.
right.
No
How you
problem.
feeling, man? You ready to do this? You ready
Yeah,
to
I'm
blow
ready.
our minds and show us some crazy stuff from Cherry?
Yep.
What are you up to over there?
Well, we're doing a few new products coming out this year. We officially announced a new version of our Mega Amplifier, which is the big boy. And we also have the DAC 3 coming out this year. And we're working on a Mark 3 version of our stereo Maraschino. So those are our three things that we're doing this year that so far. And the Mega LC, I would like to talk about that first and give a little bit of background on the Maraschino and what that is. Um,
You want to
so,
throw this up on the screen? You want to
uh,
show that or not yet?
sure.
You
Actually,
listen.
if you can go to the Maraschino page, which is also under products, should be Maraschino there, cherry up above that. There you go. So this is, oh, look at the fancy thing there. I've had someone working on the website, and I actually haven't seen all of the latest changes yet. And I'm
This one
seeing them.
just introduced the MK2.
The
Damn.
MK2's been out actually for a while, more than a year. This amplifier is it's our best amplifier, and what's great about this amp is that it's running off of a high supply voltage, so it can put out a tremendous amount of power. It can actually peak into 2 ohms, 2,000 watts if it has the appropriate power supply.
What?
Yeah,
Wow.
Tommy,
carried
can I
over by
please
the
get
caps.
the red one so it'll match my my home theater seats?
Right.
Okay,
Red
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
red.
Yeah. You need to
Yes.
have that red face.
Jeez.
so we
I'm
got the
scared for my
red face, we
speakers
got the
though.
black face, but this amplifier comes in stereo and mono, and the mono version um, can have up to quad caps, which means 4 times the normal capacitance on the power supply. By populating the unused spots for both channels, we can actually double the capacitance of a mono. And then the stereo can have either 2 of those caps per channel or 4. So the 4 caps is double capacitance. And with more capacitance, you get more holding power over transients and into low impedance. And these amps can drive some tremendous speakers. I just got a pair of JTR 212 RTs, which they're pretty efficient, but they're large, 212-inch woofers per side, and they can break windows. They can shake walls. I mean, there's very little limit that they have, and these amps drive them so well. It's a great synergy there. But we also have some other speakers that we use typically to test these mega amps, and one of them is a pair of a pair of Magnapan 1.7 Is.
I was gonna say those are notorious for needing a lot of power, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
they're so hard to drive. We actually changed the design at one point because there was a song that we played, "Zombie" by the Cranberries, just as a power test. And with that power test, the mags were able to get the amp to overheat. So we made some changes, and we this was a couple of years ago, and we made it so that it had a higher threshold for current, so and a higher threshold for heat even. And then we did some more modifications to increase the thermal capacity of the boards. Um, but I wanted to mention something real quick because I have this thing on my eye. I don't know if you can see that there.
Oof.
Let's
So
see. What are
Battle
we looking at?
scars.
What are we looking at?
it's this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh
right
yeah. What
there
is
at
it?
the eyebrow.
Yeah. So I
Well,
got hit. I got hit in the face with a football. Actually,
I was
hitting the
gonna say
glasses.
he tried to lift up one of his amps and it's both.
Turned out there was no transformer, and it just went up too quickly. So not only it's been my birthday this week, and I have my daughter's birthday tomorrow. I have the HiFi Summit, of course, and my injury. So it's been a big week, and I've been really looking forward to this. So sorry for the aside, but back to the Maraschino. The Maraschino was built to be the same form factor and have the same board outline and mounting holes as the original classic Cherry amplifier. So the box looks the same from the outside. The inside is very different. But by doing that, we're able to take classic Cherry amplifiers and replace the guts with Maraschino guts. And now it's a Maraschino, which is a very inexpensive way to
I was about to say it probably saves you some cash, right? Doing it that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so speaking of saving cash, a lot of our customers tell us, boy, it's a shame that the Maraschino is kind of out of reach for me. As you can see, that the stereo version is list price $6,100, and the monos are $4,100 list price. So we decided to make a lower cost version of the Maraschino, which is called the Mega LC, and LC simply stands for lower cost, and that is on this new page. Well, there's not much detail on this page yet. It's preliminary. The website is preliminary, but we've actually shipped some of these already, and we did not officially release this product until 2 days ago. And the Mega LC doesn't have a faceplate on the front, but what we did is we added a silkscreen logo to the front of the amplifier. The faceplate is pretty expensive. It's surprisingly expensive, and there's a long lead time on metal these days, so it's a lot less trouble to build these without a faceplate. And also, instead of having as many capacitors on the power supply, we have single rail capacitance as the standard configuration, but it can be upgraded even after the fact. You can buy it and you can upgrade it later, but it has single rail capacitance. And also in the back, instead of having the WBT gold post, which we use on the standard Maraschino, we replaced those with Dayton gold posts, which are pretty good. They're not as fancy looking, but they're about 1 milliohm more resistance per connector. That's really the difference there, which is splitting hairs at a thousandth of an ohm. And also, we replaced the transformer with a smaller transformer, which is made in Texas, by the way, by our new favorite vendor. This transformer has been designed to be as quiet as possible, even when there's DC on the line, because Toriel transformers are notorious for being finicky. If you have bad AC, they can make noise. So it's a very low noise transformer, and it's a smaller package, so the amplifier weighs less. Shipping costs a little less because of the weight, and also so far we've only made 120 volt versions of them. However, we are able on special order to do 230 volts, so we can serve Europe with these and other countries and other regions that require 230 volts. And we also provide adapters for using RCA connectors. Now, the list price for this is not set in stone just yet, but we've been having specials, and we've sold a few of these only by request. This is one of the things where if someone asks us about our specials, then we've told them over the last couple of months about the Mega LC. Actually, I think it's been a half a year now that we've been introducing this as a possibility for someone looking at the larger amps. And we've sold some at less than $300. Sorry, 3,000. Oh my God! Please don't.
I was like, whoa,
less than
whoa, what's
3,000.
going on? I'm like, am I in like
Yeah.
some bizarro world?
So yeah, for under $3,000 for a mono amp instead of 4,900. But however, the power output is a lot less. That's really the major difference as far as performance goes. Really, if you have a big system that needs a lot of power, like driving Magnapan speakers, for example, you'd go with a bigger transformer instead. And we do allow upgrades to the transformers as well. However, it does make things a little easier for people to have a prefab setup that they can order. So one thing we're going to be doing soon is we're going to have multiple configurations of the Maraschino and the Maraschino LC with upgrades included that are typical upgrades. The most popular upgrade for the Maraschino is quad capacitance on the monos. And what that does, we've done a lot of testing with FFTs to see how much noise there is below the excitation frequency, and you can see how much 60 hertz and 120 hertz and 180 hertz gets through to the output of the amplifier. And it's very, very low with the Maraschino. The FFT is a beautiful thing on this amplifier. But with more capacitance, the little spikes that are below 1 kilohertz, they just go away. With quad capacitance, it is an extremely refined amplifier, and we also offer upgrades for the transformers, namely a 1500 watt version of the transformer. So crazy. Can you imagine having, a pair of amplifiers, each with their own 1500 watt transformer, each with quad capacitance in them on the power supplies? That is a really nice setup if you have speakers that are, really high performance speakers, really demanding speakers. And we've tested these amplifiers with Apogee, with JTR, with Dynaudio, with Magnapan, with Vandersteen, with B&W, and Tannoy, and the Maraschino is probably the most versatile as far as being able to drive just about anything that you'd want. However, if you don't want to spend that kind of money, and if you don't mind going to the 2 to 5 channel amplifier, our biggest selling product right now is the 2 Cherry amplifier, which is a stereo version of our multi-channel amplifier series, which is made of Maraschino boards. And Maraschino is an amplifier that we started producing in 2013. Was only mono blocks at that point. And we later came out with a stereo Maraschino. Most of these Maraschino amplifiers are 400 watts into 4 ohms with the 60 volt power supply. And the same goes for the 2 Cherry. The 2 Cherry is made with Maraschino boards that would normally go into our monoblock amplifiers. And those boards have very low output impedance. Actually, the damping factor is greater than 500 on them. But in order to get higher damping factor, we would have had to compromise on the way we do our feedback mechanism and also the way we do our modulation slightly. And we did not want to take that compromise. So we would rather have an amplifier that sounds smooth and very pretty in the high end. What happens when, at least with a lot of technologies, what happens when you try to keep on getting lower and lower distortion, lower and lower noise, higher damping factor, you wind up with a control issue, especially in the high frequencies, that kind of to some people, they say sounds stale, harsh, rough. I don't know. The list of adjectives are really long. Well, what we do is we test it for sound and we tweak it for sound, but we also do measurements at the same time. So we're not trying to only tweak for sound and forget the measurements completely. We want to spot check and we want to, quality check our work to make sure that we're still able to reach the bandwidth that we're promising, still able to reach the distortion levels that we're promising, and the noise, the low noise. We want to be able to maintain those specs, but at the same time, we want the sound to be as good as possible. And a lot of companies out there now don't make their own amplifiers. It's been several years now where many, even the highest end companies, are producing amplifiers with prefab modules, and they don't actually design amplifiers anymore. They put boards in a box with a power supply and they're done with it. Well, we design all of our circuitry from scratch. We are a design company first and foremost. I didn't even, in the beginning of Cherry Amplifier, actually the beginning of Digital Amplifier Company, which was 1997, I didn't even envision us selling finished product. I actually thought we were going to be selling technology to semiconductor companies to produce amplifier chips. And that morphed into making prototypes, which morphed into doing modules, but not modules in the sense of what they are now. But we actually made a brick. It was like 7 by 4 by 2 inches or 7 by 4 by 3. That was 1,000-watt Class D amplifier module. Now we're making circuit boards. We have a circuit board that's 2 inches by 3 inches that'll do 1,000 watts. And it's just as technology has progressed, things have gotten smaller. But one other thing that I have on my list here to mention, we make Class D amplifiers. A lot of people ask us right up front, is this a Class A, B, is it Class D? And then they ask us, if I say it's Class D, they say, well, whose modular are you using? And the answer is nobody's. We're using our own. We make our own circuit boards. Well, these amplifiers are, first of all, very, very much made in USA. I mean, we buy all of our boards, we buy all of our wire harnesses, all of our enclosures, all of that is made in USA. And because of that, we need to do some things different in order to keep our costs in a reasonable range, because, well, costs are going up now, and we've never raised our prices since we started selling stuff. But I thought in the beginning, I thought I was going to be selling IP, and we made modules for a particular customer, and we needed to make a demo system for these modules. So we built a motherboard to put the modules on, and we built an enclosure to put them in so that it would be a nice, easy package to ship. And it turns out that wound up being our first product. And it was our first finished product. It was the DAC 4800A amplifier. And that consisted of our bricks that we made on a motherboard, which we later morphed into no bricks, but we put the circuitry half on the motherboard and half on cards in order to fit it in the box. And then eventually that became the classic Cherry, that had to be back in 2007, I think, is when we first started selling those. So people ask, they say what kind of amplifier it is. Then we say Class D. They say whose module is. We say we don't use modules. And then they say, well, I have this kind of speaker and I want an amplifier to drive that type of speaker. A lot of people that we sell amplifiers to have B&W speakers, Magnapan, a lot of the fancier brands, von Schweikert, Vandersteen. even Magico, actually, which I would just love to get a picture of my amplifiers with the Magico speakers. That would really be great. And we have a relationship with JTR in that we did trade shows together. We stopped doing the in-person trade shows for at least for now. This is much better for us. And actually, I want to say, you know, Joe has done a great job putting this stuff together and enabling us to present what we have here in a nice format like this.
Thanks, Tommy. Hey, real quick, before you were talking about how you measure, but you also make sure that it sounds good. And I didn't want to interrupt you because you're on a roll, but you know, I'm very curious about that. How much correlation would you say there is between what you measure and what sounds good, and how much would you say, oh, you know what, I'm going to kind of deviate a little bit because you might not measure as well, but I just think it just sounds a little bit better. How do you go about that?
Well, it's a very iterative process. It's taken many years to be able to correlate a circuit change and the resulting effect on performance as measured with what that does to the sound. And I can tell you one of the most useful graphs to us, one of the most useful tests is to look at distortion over frequency. And that kind of gives you an idea of the behavior of the amplifier into a certain load. And we actually use reactive loads for testing as well as just purely resistive loads. But when you listen to something, when you make a change and then you listen to it and you look at the graph and you listen to it and you look at the graph and then you make another change that's related, it's the difference between the two changes that really gives you more information than coming from something with a mod versus doing a mod and then two versions of that mod. It gives you a better idea of how much that mod might affect the sound. And I have a standard set of maybe 30 songs that I use as test tracks. And I'm not the only one listening to this stuff. I have a bunch of people listen to them. Sometimes I'll do demos. There are a couple of local people here that help me evaluate the sound. And I'll make a board with the new modifications and have a board with the old version and then A/B them, not in a double blind type of test, which would be great. I'm a big fan of double blind listening tests. I think there's really no other way to accomplish the same thing for evaluating. But with more of a sighted test or more of I'm not going to tell you which amplifier I'm hooking up, but I know which amplifier I'm hooking up. So even so, because it's not double blind, I might be biased in a way. I might say something like, well, how's that sound? You know, it might just the inflection of my voice might change what someone would say. But really, some tracks, it's the female voice really gives a lot of feedback. Piano music, the way a piano sounds is really, really hard to reproduce to the point where you can close your eyes and you can't tell there's not a piano
That's the
in
recording.
the room. The recording has to be really good too.
Right.
And I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, without a good recording, what's the point? But what we've noticed is that on some speakers with some amplifiers, and another really important part is a good DAC. I haven't talked about our DACs yet, but I will. Having a really good DAC makes a big difference, and feeding the amplifier what it should be fed is what that's all about. But without a good recording, none of that makes sense. So what I do typically is I use Cobuzz, and I have a Blue Sound node, and I guess I'll announce now to everybody that I have become, or we have become, a Blue Sound dealer. So we can package the node with our amplifiers at a discount, and we will be offering them. We'll be offering them pretty soon. As soon as we get delivery of the new node, there's a new version coming out, and we'll be getting delivery in July. So we'll be offering probably $100 or more off of the cost of the node if you buy one of our amplifiers. And our amplifiers now, we do have some models now that are below $1,000, and we're going to try to do more of that moving forward. Unfortunately, it's kind of a push in two directions, because I don't know if you guys heard, like if you have built anything with wood recently, you know how much wood costs now compared to last year. The same thing is going on with metal. Some chips price goes up if you want to quicken the lead time. So there are some costs that are increasing globally in the electronics world, but we're still holding steady on our prices. We're going to try to keep keep being able to say we have never raised our prices. So the newest amp that we're going to be coming out with now is the Stereo Maraschino Mark III. That amplifier, can you look at the Maraschino? You might have to go through a few things here. Maraschino, and then scroll down and click on Stereo Maraschino. This amplifier is a 400 watt per channel into 4 ohm amplifier, and it's 6.5 by 6.5 by 2 inches.
Oh yeah, it's like a Mac Mini.
Yeah,
right?
it's the same size,
box.
right?
Yeah.
And the power supply is the same size, and the Cherry USB, which is a separate product, is the same size. And you can see that little stack there. You can stack the DAC and the Cherry USB and the amplifier and the power supply all together. And there's a lower power version of the Maraschino, the Stereo Maraschino, which will be $1,000. And that runs off a 48 volt supply, and that puts out about 120 watts per channel, regardless of the impedance, because the limiting factor there is actually the amount of power that the power supply can put out, as opposed to the amount of power the output stage of the amplifier can put out, because the output stage is definitely capable of a lot more. And that amplifier actually is the same as a Maraschino mono block, which you can look at those things after this, but the topology is the same. Internally, the circuitry is very, very similar, not identical, because the Stereo Maraschino has a preamp section, and it has a front input and a rear input, and it also has a selector for whether you let it sleep or not. So you can make it automatically sleep, or you can make it stay on all the time, or make sure it's off all the time, or turn it off so that you have to turn it back on later. But I forget what my point was here about the Maraschino circuitry is the same inside, except it's a stereo amp and it's all on one board. So the mono blocks and the multi-channel amplifier series that use Maraschino boards, they use monoblock boards instead of the stereo board. So there is a difference there in putting two channels on one board. It's simply not as refined as a monoblock, and that's because it has one power supply driving two channels, and it has the same board. So there's going to be some kind of interaction. However, our channel-to-channel separation is about 100 dB. So really, there's no complaints there from anybody about how well this amplifier performs. There was a review a couple of years ago by Youthman Reviews of the Stereo Maraschino.
Wait, who?
Youthman.
That guy.
I don't know if you've
Not
ever
sure.
heard of him.
I don't know. Oh.
Nah.
Sounds like a weird name.
He's kind of crazy. I'm not sure if they institutionalized him yet, but
He's not here. It's unfair.
I know.
Yeah.
So he did a review on it, and I don't know how many times in that review he said, "I just can't believe how small this thing is."
I saw it. He actually, before, I think while he was editing or before he started shooting, one or the other, he's just like, have you guys seen these amps? These things are tiny and they put out so much power. It's ridiculous.
So
Like,
actually,
where's the rest of it? When he showed us, I'm like, where's the...
Yeah.
Because he read out the specs. Are like, that's it? Like, what are you talking about? Doesn't make any sense.
The Maraschino monoblocks and the stereo Maraschino with the 60 volt power supply. There are two different power supplies that we're using now. We have more power supplies than we were before, but we're simplifying the product line. So there's a 48 volt power supply and there's a 60 volt power supply. Well, the 60 volt one is 1,000 watt power supply. So with a one channel amp, you can put up to 800 watts into 2 ohms. And it can actually handle under 2 ohms and still remain stable. But a lot of people with Magnepans love these little amplifiers, and that's because, first of all, Magnepan has this LRS LRS little ribbon speaker, right? Very popular speaker now. It is power hungry, very power hungry, and the stereo Maraschino is a great match for those speakers. Even with the 48 volt power supply, it can still light them up really well. And the fact is, a lot of times it's not about the power so much as it's about the current. And I know power is voltage times current, but Magnepan speakers dip so low in impedance in certain spots. And the 1.7s that I have, I know I've seen a graph for them, and they go down below 2 ohms in like one spot in the graph. And if you don't have a really strong amplifier, it's going to make the amplifier thermal. It's going to make it shut off. Couple months ago, I sold the pair of amps that I was using as a reference in my demo system. So I didn't have anything to replace it with it right away. So I dug through my pile of demos and on the shelf of different things that were kind of set aside for maybe someday we can sell this, but it's really not like a finished product. And I had a pair of prototype inline Maraschino amps. And if you can go to the back one page to Maraschino and then click on the inline Maraschino amps. So yeah, from there, I think you have to go back one more. Oh, yeah, back one more. And then, inline is off to the right, next to the stereo Maraschino. So that amplifier is like a little cube. It weighs about a pound each. But it's the same amplifier as in the multi-channel amps, as in the monoblock desktop Maraschinos. And it can do 800 watts into 2 ohms with the switching power supply that is external. So the amplifier, in this case, I don't know if are there any other pictures in that group? There might be a picture of the amplifier hanging, because you can hang these from the speaker because they're so light. And by doing that, you reduce the length of the speaker cable. The speaker cable, even if you have, let's say, 12 gauge wire and 10 feet of it, I believe the impedance of that round trip is more than 20 milliohms, which is actually significantly more than the output impedance of the inline Maraschino or the desktop Maraschino or any of the Maraschino-based amps or the multi-channel amps. The output impedance of those amplifiers at 1 kilohertz is 16 milliohms. Most amplifier companies, they measure the output impedance or damping factor through an equation at 100 hertz, which is a much lower frequency, obviously, than a kilohertz. But what happens is as the frequency goes up, the damping factor goes down. So what we've done is we've made our amplifiers retain the high damping factor past 10 kilohertz. Actually, our latest design has a damping factor of 200 at 10 kilohertz. And this is achievable without using gobs of feedback with the methods that we use to work around that. And that is really good for a speaker that has, especially speakers with ribbon tweeters and soft cloth dome tweeters, where you can really hear right up to the edge. I mean, I especially like ribbon tweeters. I really do. But they have a tendency to really show the inadequacies of the equipment that's driving them.
Right.
So by keeping the damping factor high throughout the spectrum, and also by the way we do our modulation and our feedback, we're able to produce a very analog sounding digital amplifier. That's I am an engineer, and I have a little bit of a problem with some of the verbiage that people use sometimes, but
Verbiage to do what? To
to
describe how
describe the
something
sound.
sounds?
Yeah,
Oh, like a chocolatey bottom end?
exactly.
That's not good for you?
You don't like
Yes.
that?
Sparkling
so-
highs.
Someone said to me once, I heard the cymbal sounded throaty, and I'm thinking, what? I've never heard anyone describe a cymbal. Throaty is a voice thing.
Yeah, yeah. Throaty cymbal.
I think the
Now-
I think the guy was I think he was just mixing up terms, but basically, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I've seen cymbals where they've drilled holes in them, like a whole lot, like 30, 40 holes, and they put nuts and bolts in them.
Oh yeah, rivets.
Yeah, and
I had
then
one like that.
they hit them, and it makes this weird
Oh, yeah.
sound. So maybe that's kind of what they mean,
My
But
dad's old
I
drum
don't know.
set had them. They were pretty standard, I think, in the 60s.
Yeah,
And
right.
now, well, I don't know. I play the drums also, and I probably have about, I don't know, 8 different cymbals, and they all make a lot different. They all make different types of sound, but there's a certain kind of shimmer that it's a quick and easy way to sit down and for 10 seconds, if you're hearing a song that has a cymbal that's recorded properly, you can hear right away if this is a good audio system or not. Just by the sound of that kind of shimmer and the decay that goes with a cymbal is really a nice way to hear what the high end sounds like quickly.
You have a test track that you like to use for that?
I have a lot of
Any
them.
particular-
Yeah, dude. It's just a cymbal
wanna
hit.
know.
Just one
There's-
single
I know.
cymbal hit.
I'm trying to think of what would be good for the cymbal hit. There's a track from Glass Animals called Hazy, which doesn't have cymbal hits too much in it, but that's a very good track to hear sharp transients and that kind of hear the edge on the highs.
Easy.
But there's one that's from the Basio twins. I think it is Basio twins. I can look it up on my favorites because it's one of the tracks that's very close on my list here, and I can.
Did you say that they support 220 volts? Just there's some questions here.
Oh yeah, I'm not seeing any.
Oh, you're not seeing the question. So I mean, there's
it
a
wasn't
lot.
on the comments.
Yeah, it's on the screen itself. Like I saw one from Kanga saying what kind of heat do they put out? Because it's a lot of power.
Yeah, that's definitely want to talk about. Let me look up this song first here.
Sure, no problem.
I love this thing. So if I look at my playlist, I have a couple different playlists for different types of things. My favorite one now is my bass playlist. I've just been listening to that constantly.
Oh, nice. We like bass.
Definitely. White Noise from Ella Voss is a really good test track too. Let me look at your test. And experimental test. Okay, it's called what? I'm gonna have to get back to you on this one. I didn't realize how
I'm
long
here
this
taking
list
notes.
was.
Oh,
Yeah.
I wrote down that White Noise by
Ten-
Ella Voss. I got
Okay.
that. At
How do you
least.
spell that?
ELLAVOS. And of course, White Noise is normal.
Goodbye Stranger from Supertramp is another really good test track. My God, it's like everything I want except for the one song here. Hold on.
It's always how it is, right?
Yeah, I want to sidetrack too much. I want to get
Yeah,
back to
no
the
worries.
efficiency and heat question. Actually, that's a
Yeah.
very good question. I swear I thought I had it on here. I will find it and I will let you know. At the live session, I'll get it by then.
Mhm.
At least I'll remember the name of it possibly. But it's Basio, something Basio twins, or someone probably knows it and they'll comment it. Okay, so our amplifiers are not designed, despite the fact that they're Class D, or they're not designed for high efficiency. They are efficient because they're Class D amplifiers, but other amplifiers, other companies might brag, well, we have a 97% efficiency or 98% efficiency. Our efficiency is typically between 90 and 95, closer to 90 for a lot of things. So our amps generate a little bit more heat than a lot of the other Class D amplifiers out there. This is kind of the not price we pay, but this is kind of a compromise that we're happy with, because the efficiency factor of Class D is really a lot more important for car audio or for portable audio, cell phones, or things like that, that you might need barely any heat dissipation coming off of it for it to exist happily in its space. Car audio is notorious for high heat, compact size, requires higher power than you'd think in a lot of cases. But we really, our products are made to be used in a house.
Mhm.
And there's no need to have ultra cool amps in a house. Of course, you don't want things, being a space heater, like some tube amps, that you turn them on and you leave the room and come back in a couple hours, and it feels like you got to, you turn the temperature up on the thermostat. So these, the Cherry amplifiers are typically in the 90s or so. So they do run a little warm. You can put your hand on the top of the multi-channel amps. You can feel a little bit of heat. On the Maraschino, you can feel a little bit of heat. Not so much with the mono because it's got a huge box for one channel. But the desktop Maraschinos, actually, people have commented they feel like they're not even on. You can't feel that they're on because they run so cool. Well, it's the same board that's in the multi-channel amp series, but in the case of the multi-channel amp, that board does not have a heatsink. The board itself is being used as a heatsink, and I could go on and on about how we deal with thermal issues, and how we get the heat off of the parts. But in the case of the desktop Maraschino, that cube functions as a heatsink, and in most cases, it's attached to a solid aluminum base, which weighs like 7 pounds or so. It's a solid hunk of aluminum, so that's a huge heatsink, and the heat just has a lot of places to go in that design. So that design is particularly interesting in that it has a lot of power for its size. It comes in various colors and everything, so it's more versatile that way. But it comes on a slab of aluminum that is, or a block of aluminum that has sorbethane feet on the bottom of it, so it's vibration resistant. And it also seems to run a lot cooler, although the board itself still generates the same amount of heat as the inline Maraschino and as the multi-channel amp series. The stereo Maraschino, some people have commented, felt really warm. And some people were asking me, is there something wrong? Because it feels like it's running hot. But it wasn't running hot. It was just running normally. That was the original version. After the original version, we came out with the Mark II version, which is a modification to the original. And that improved or decreased idle power by about, I guess, 3 watts or so. And 3 watts doesn't sound like a lot of power. But when the thing is just sitting there, it's generating heat and not doing out anything else unless you're playing music. Once you start playing music, most of the power is actually just going to keep the amps running, or it is directly delivered into the speaker through the amp. Unless you're playing really loud, then the amplifier can actually get a little warmer. But for the most part, our amplifiers stay the same temperature almost regardless of what's playing. So you can kind of count on them, whatever they feel like, even when it's muted, that's going to stay at that level. So, sometimes people put things in cabinets that have glass doors. It's a confined space. Some of the cabinets are sealed in the back. So, our amplifiers are actually pretty good at handling those situations and not really worrying that much about having good ventilation and all, despite the fact that they run hotter than other Class D amplifiers. I hope I answered your question, and I'm sorry I'm so long-winded on that one.
I think you did. I think you did. Here's one from Matthew Hilty. Which switching power supply brand does Cherry use?
Oh, that's they're proprietary.
You make your own?
No, but we have them modified.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, the art that we do is amplifiers. Power supply is like something you use to drive an amplifier, but in the case of the Maraschino has a linear toried transformer. Those are the ones that we have made in Texas now. That transformer and that power supply using the transformer and the big caps and all that, it's very old-fashioned kind of power supply. And we've been asked many, many times, why don't you use a switching power supply to drive your big amps? Well, this year, our fourth new thing might be that. I don't know if we can. Our schedule is very, very packed. And our first priority is actually to get the new DAC 3 out, which I haven't mentioned yet. And I see we have just over 10 minutes left. So I don't know if I should switch gears and talk about the DACs now. What do you guys think? Let's see what people are asking me to talk about.
Motion has a question here. He says, I just joined. I have a Yamaha RXV 2085 9.2 AV receiver. Can I use this to power my front speakers? What do you suggest?
What are your speakers?
That would be my question.
Yeah.
I know.
The answer is yes. The answer is yes either way. But what you would use... Yeah, thank you. Which Cherry you would use depends on the speakers.
Right. I mean, I'm looking at.
You wouldn't want to use another. You wouldn't want to use some other brand. That would be awful.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at. I'm getting a full 10 speaker swap out here to some Focals. So I was like, oh, maybe a couple of those 5-channel Cherries. That would do the trick.
I know a guy.
You know a guy. Yeah. I bet you do.
What was that?
Very handsome guy.
Talking about yourself now.
It was a Yamaha 2085, he said.
Okay, 2085. I believe that actually might have XLR preamp outputs on it.
I think that's why he asked about the 2, because I know Yamaha does XLRs for a couple of them.
That's excellent. Yamaha is a great manufacturer. A lot of our customers have Yamaha driving our amps, actually. And because if it is balanced, if it's not balanced, we give adapters, RCA adapters.
It looks like he doesn't have the balanced on there. I just looked it up. But can you speak on that? Is there, because I get that question a lot.
Just for the front 2, left and right, I would say if it's a pair of speakers that does not require massive power, probably the 2 Cherry. Mm-hmm. Because the 2 Cherries in a single chassis, internal power supply, the desktop Maraschinos are very, very refined solution. That would be second place, but that's going to cost a lot more. Also, it's although the wife acceptance factor is very high on the desktop Maraschinos. I can't tell you how many people said, my wife loves these. She thinks they're so cute.
Right.
Well, tell her they put out 1,000 watts, and you want to show her.
She's like, I have no idea what that means. All right, so here are his speakers. Let me put them up on the screen here.
All right.
He said Yamaha.
It's got really loud all of a sudden.
555. So these are the speakers here.
Oh,
And
nice.
here are
I've
the
never seen
specs.
these. So what is the efficiency first of all?
Well, its sensitivity is 88 dB, I think. Is that what you're?
Yep. And how many ohms is that? I can't read the thing.
6 ohms.
Great. Okay. Well, I think a 2-cherry would be perfect because it's under 90 dB, which means you do want some oomph, and the 2-cherry will put out about 300 watts per channel into 6 ohms. And it's the thing about another thing about our amplifiers is the performance of the amplifier is maintained until it almost tops out. It's almost in clipping. We get very, very close to the edge. In fact, one of the things about our circuitry is that the way the modulator works, it allows a really wide range of switching frequencies on the output. So, and it adjusts itself, but we have a very fast driver stage that's capable of small pulse widths despite high voltage. So we can get very close to the edge with them. And the real downfall of receivers is the amplifiers in there.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
I mean, let's be real. They're doing a whole lot of stuff. HDMI
exactly.
switching, decoding, all kinds of things. And there's a bunch of stuff in these receivers that I don't even use. It's like, do I really need all these things? You have the Blue Sound. Like, I have a Blue Sound Node 2i, and that thing's awesome. And I use that more than I would ever use any of the streaming services in the AVR. You know,
Right.
It's kind of like, hey, can you guys stop putting that silly stuff in there and then cut down the price like a couple $100?
Well, it's funny you should say. We use a Node 2i for all of our demos. That's our go-to streamer, and that's why I wanted to be a dealer of them, because I believe in that product. I really love that product. I love the interface and all that, but really the receivers that have streaming in them and all, they just don't have as good of an interface in a lot of cases. They don't operate as seamlessly. And with an external DAC, now remember how I said the downfall of receivers is the amplifiers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the downfall of streamers is typically the DAC.
DAC, yeah.
So with an external DAC, and I guess now's a good segue since I have only 5 minutes left. The DAC 1 that we came out with, 5-6 years ago, that had a signal noise ratio around 124 dB for the high performance version. Then a couple years later, we came out with the DAC 2, and the DAC 2 got to 130 dB. Then now we're working on the DAC 3, which should be out by the end of the summer, and our target SNR is 132, which is as good as the chips that we're using are able to do. That DAC is also DC coupled. It's true balanced, and there are 2 DAC chips in there, one for each channel. We have a very, very nice oscillator that reclocks the data coming in so that you don't have to worry about jitter. Jitter is a non-issue. I repeat, jitter is a non-issue with our DAC, and that is what we use to drive our demo systems without a preamp. We connect the node to the DAC and connect the DAC to whatever amps we're driving, preferably with XLR cables, because the outputs are balanced. We want to use that. And that gives us an end-to-end solution that's actually DC coupled end-to-end. And I really don't know where else you would get a DC coupled end-to-end system, unless I think Storm Audio has DC coupled DACs in their $32,000 processor.
That's all. You just got to buy like a little car.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
But see, not only is that's a high priced product, well, they have an amazing hardware for a decoder or for a processor. People call them processors, surround sound processor. And by the way, we have a lot of customers with Anthem processors now. I'm guessing that the room correction is part of it. I heard that the room correction is really easy to use on those.
I don't know about real easy to use,
No,
but it sounds
better than
good.
Emotiva.
It's yeah, probably better than Emotiva. I mean, they did this silly thing where like you have to connect it up via Wi-Fi, and the computer has to find it on the network, and like it wasn't happening. I did tried all kinds of different things, and it just wasn't happening. And I called them. I'm like, hey, can I just? My laptop has Ethernet. Can I just plug the Ethernet from my laptop to the Ethernet of the of the Anthem? And they're like, oh yeah, and you can do that, but and we had directions online how to set it up properly, but we took those down. And I'm like,
man.
I'm like, okay.
Is there a legacy page I can see?
Yeah, like why would you take that down? I mean, like, what if my Wi-Fi just wasn't working? And it finally worked after I went onto the phone app, and then the phone app saw the receiver. I'm like, oh, and then I went back to the laptop, and then the laptop saw it. So I don't know what happened.
It's great troubleshooting, though.
Oh man, I have dumb luck. This is what it was.
It sounds like you know what you're doing. Yeah, the receiver part, driving a receiver in a surround sound system, in a lot of cases, people want the front two to be able to deliver 2-channel audio as good as a dedicated 2-channel system. So one thing I think that Joe actually, we're talking on the phone, and Joe said, you should mention that our multi-channel amps have a sleep function, but the sleep function is independent per channel.
Mm-hmm. So
if you're playing surround sound, it uses all the channels. But if you're only playing 2-channel audio, say you have a 5-channel 5-cherry, which is the 5-channel version, and you have the front twos on channel 2 and 4, then channels 1, 3, and 5 will go to sleep while you're playing 2-channel audio.
Okay, so you're getting that full power, that, what is it, 1,000 watts max, right?
Right. So the power supply is driving just those 2 channels now. And
because what I was telling him, Shauna, was like, we get a lot of questions from people like, I'm not sure whether I should do a home theater setup or I should do 2-channel because they're gonna be,
both.
kind of. So I was like, that's a perfect place for your amps because you can do both. It'll do both of them very well, depending on how many channels you're driving.
So those are some neat speakers. What are those?
These are the Focal Canta 2s. These are what I'll be getting soon. And so
what's
here
the list on those, if you don't mind me asking?
They're 10,000 a pair, I think.
Something. Yeah, not bad.
Something like that. But here we go. It's saying 40 to 300 watts, 8 ohm, 91 dB, sensitive. Which cherry would you recommend? Because I do still have 10 speakers altogether, 5 ear level, 5 height channels.
Are you only going to do cherries for the front too, or do you want?
I could do cherries all over. I mean,
for these guys.
For these specifically,
I would use monoblocks. I would use the desktop Maraschino monoblocks, or maybe even a Maraschino monoblock, like the LC monoblock. I think would be perfect for it but they take a lot of space and they're pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they're pretty heavy rather. I don't know if that's a factor for you. Is it?
I have a rack.
2 big amps.
I have 2 big amps there already.
Okay.
But those 2 amps are powering all the speakers. So I don't know. I mean,
I would actually recommend a stereo Mega LC, right?
Uh-huh.
Plus, however many other channels you have, you just use the multi-channel amps for that, so that they all.
And the stereo Mega LC is like 500 watts per channel lower than the Mega MK2. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, I measured recently a stereo Maraschino with the 400-watt transformer in it, and I think I was getting like 350 or something like that per channel into 8 ohms. Now you might say, wait, 400-watt transformer, how can it put out 700 watts with a less than 100% efficient amplifier? Well, or less than 100 and whatever percent.
Right.
These transformers, the toroidal transformers, are rated at what power it would take for them to raise a certain temperature over 1 minute. Okay. But the way our amplifiers work is they're very easy on the power supply because they're efficient, and the efficiency rises as the power rises. So the closer you get to the limits of the amp, the more efficient it becomes.
Okay.
So, and that has a really good effect on the power supply, being able to deliver, especially transients if the power caps are big enough. But I can get like 700 watts total out of a Mega LC into a pair of speakers. Where if you use the desktop Maraschino and you had 4 ohm speakers, that's 800 watts total, and it's a whole different type of packaging,
right.
than with the Mega. But the Mega amps are very refined sound, and they actually consist of basically 3 amplifiers per channel in working together.
Huh.
So it's a very unconventional design. It's a very high-tech design. It took several years to make this work.
And are the Megas still Class D?
Yes, it's Class D. But the distortion performance is amazing.
Yeah, I see that.
The noise floor is incredibly non-existent. I mean, it just has such a black background, and it has such a fast, nice sound, and there really isn't much it can't drive. So I think the level of refinement would be appreciable with the Mega LC. But you might be happier with mono blocks because you can get them closer to the speakers. And if you want to put them on stands or something instead of in your rack, then you can minimize the length of your speaker cables. And going back to what I didn't finish talking about before,
Uh-oh.
Oh, I got
We
disconnected.
lost him.
I was about to tell him, hey, Tommy, I'm gonna set up a system with all Magnapans, just all the speakers. Just want a bunch
like
of
11 Magnapans.
yeah. I need 11 megas.
11 megas.
The mono ones. 5G, that'd be pretty crazy. Is he back? Let's see. Almost.
There he is.
I'm back.
There, look, he's donned a red face. He is.
Whoa.
That was so crazy. I thought you turned into an amplifier.
That was bright as hell.
You look like a cherry right there.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, apparently the USB cable on my webcam is kind of.
Well, I was joking while you were gone, Tommy. I was saying that I was going to tell you that I wanted an 11-channel system, all Magnapans. So I need 11 of the Mega, the monos. That would be.
Just use the inlines and stick them behind the speakers. No one will know you have amplifiers.
There you go. I had a tough question for you. You ready for a tough question?
Sure.
So we were talking about Amir and what he's doing over there at Audio Science Review, and I'm kind of curious. What do you think would happen if he measured, some of your amps? What do you think would happen?
I think he'd like them. I think he would, because he'd compare them to other Class D amps probably. But he's being a measurement-centric guy. I think he would probably look at the specs and look at the prices and say, "Oh, you could get something cheaper," like that.
Okay,
and then
that's
he
fair.
might criticize the aesthetics, which he tends to do.
Well, we're straight up guys. When we talk, Tommy, we don't really hold back, and that's kind of how we roll here too. So I like
there was a review in Audioholics that was published, I think, 2 weeks ago now. That is very technical. In fact, Matt Pose, who did the review, his feeling about amplifiers is that if you don't overdrive them, or you don't put speakers with them that they can't really handle, then all amplifiers sound the same. That's his point of view. But he measured the thing and he verified that it meets the specs, and actually he wound up breaking it. I think he put a probe in there. I think he opened it. I don't know. I have to ask. But he did break it toward the end, but he did a lot of measurements, and I think he did a great review, and it was very, very technical. very technical. Hold on one second here.
And also,
We have
I
a
want to
Q&A
make sure
session,
that
right?
what's that?
We have a Q&A session.
Yeah,
Is
we
that
can
now?
we can pop in there in case people have questions. There are a lot of questions here that we didn't really get to. So
Oh, I see
if you
this
want to,
Fred question here. What cherry DAC would you recommend Sennheiser 800 headphones?
let me see.
There's
Yeah,
600 ohm headphones, I guess.
yeah. Our DACs are line output so far only. So you would need an amplifier to drive the headphones.
Ah,
The
so
cherry
it's
DAC.
literally just a DAC.
Yeah. Let me make a quick point here. With headphones, I think a better DAC is more important, or having a really good DAC is more important with headphones. I think because you hear with headphones on a higher level. I believe you can hear more detail than with a pair of loudspeakers. However, the presentation is lacking in that you don't feel the bass, physically. Although there are ways to fix that. Um, I always thought it'd be really cool to have a pair of headphones and a subwoofer, just to create the physical effect of the bass, and you can hear the bass through the
With the
headphones,
headphones, right? Because it's
right?
just shaking
As
the
long
room
as they're
there.
not, like noise canceling, ear cups or whatever.
So here we go. After this, just head over to Cherry app. Let's see, where is it under? Yeah,
Exhibitor, and then
yeah,
click on
exhibitors,
Cherry.
and then click on the Cherry app, and then click here to enter the meeting, and then Tommy will be in there.
Okay.
And also, if you want to enter his giveaway, he has a giveaway here.
Oh, I forgot to mention.
Yeah, I got you. So this is it. Two of these, right?
Yes,
Hopefully
we're
I got
giving
that
away two
right.
of
Two.
those, and the list price on those is $390. And
All right.
this is a way to connect a computer to your audio system. The output of the Cherry USB is isolated, so it keeps from creating a ground loop. The device does not need to be powered from an external power supply. It runs off USB power, and it goes up to 384 kilohertz rate,
There it is.
24-bit, 32-bit they say, but it's kind of crazy. 32-bit, I don't get that.
Look at him in action right there.
I think
Oh,
144 dB is adequate, at least for now, and that's what 24 bits can do. So
all right. Well, very good, Tommy. I'm gonna give you the link to make sure. Actually, you have the link. I sent you the link. And if you have any questions, Tommy will be in there. Shauna, you want to wrap this one up?
That's
I guess we're
right,
done for
ladies
the
and
day, huh?
gentlemen. Yeah, day one, HiFi Summit 2021 quarter two. We are wrapping it up here with Cherry Amplifiers and
Thank
our
you, Tommy.
man
Thank you.
Tommy.
thank you very much.
This was great. A lot of great information when you're on, and a lot of sexy red and black. You do what? You know what I was doing earlier, man? I was making some red and black chairs that looked great for the home theater. Oh, you put some of that,
You need
and
some
then with a
amplifiers to
little,
match those chairs.
yeah, and some red and black amplifiers. Man, you do, Joe. You can do a whole red and black
Let's
theme,
go.
bro. You know what
Let's
I'm
go.
saying?
While we have like 2 seconds, I don't know if they're. We have specials all the time. We sell demos and we have specials.
I saw
Uh,
that on the site too. It said
Yeah,
we
you
have
email.
specials.
You
yeah,
have a good email thing going on because you
I,
always
s-
kind
I
of
sent out a
keep
mass. I
everybody up to
sent out an
date.
email a couple days ago with 8 items, and we do maybe 2 of those a year. I don't want to be that guy that's constantly sending stuff, So we do like just 2 a year. Summarize what's going on or what's been going on, and in that newsletter we talked about the Mega LC. We talked about the HiFi Summit, and that we're a
Yes.
sponsor on the HiFi Summit. Um, but geez, I wanted to mention that if you email support@digitalamp.com, okay, and that's on the website. So if you go to cherryamp.com, there's a
And
thing at
just
the
scroll
bottom.
down to the bottom. I put
There's
it
a
up on screen right here.
right. There's an
Boom, right in
email us,
there in green.
right, and
Yep.
then farther down, there's an email us button also, and we also have Facebook. But as far as Facebook goes, I hardly ever use Messenger.
Just email you guys.
Yeah, better to email.
You got a lot of followers on Facebook.
It's 20,000 something.
20,000, yeah.
That's quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's stayed the same for like 2 years. You know, it's going up and down by like a couple hundred maybe, but you know, I think I don't know about I don't know how Facebook is doing now, but there seems to be less traffic than last year. Uh, but we try to do as little advertising as possible, and that sounds really odd, but I would rather be something that the company be something people find and they're glad they found it, than it's being pushed in everyone's faces continually. So if email us, we'll send you a list of our specials and instructions on how to get one of those. We typically have Cherry USBs. In fact, we have them now for $190 if you buy a DAC instead of $390. Right? It's basically half price. We have a pair of silver desktop Maraschinos for less than $2,000, and they've been used as a demo like once. You know, it's a beautiful pair of amps, but they're silver, and most people want the red or the black. They don't really. A lot of people don't like the silver, the color, but it looks kind of. I like it myself, but I'm weird. It looks kind of like a steampunk kind of look. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like
Okay.
it's silver in color, but it's really unfinished aluminum.
Right.
It's cast aluminum, but it has the silk screen and everything on it, so it looks nice. And by the way, I forgot to mention also, I had a little, you know, show and tell items as a Cherry USB. This is one of the ones that we're giving away. We have new, nicer looking black screws on the back here. And what else did I bring here? Oh,
Got a treasure trove over there.
yeah, DAC board prototype that we're working on here. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, and if you buy amps from us, we'll give you pens. Look, you get pens.
And you get a discount.
T-shirt.
And you get a discount on Blue Sound products, right? When
Blue
you
Sound
buy
Node. We're going to be selling the
Node.
We're going to be selling the Node, and the Node is no longer going to be called the 2i or whatever.
Yeah, they have a newer version. Yeah,
it's just going to be called Node now.
Node, okay.
Right. So that's starting in July, and we should have the DAC out this summer. Also, the Stereo Maraschino 3 Mark III. We're probably going to do a Kickstarter for that. And this will be our 8th Kickstarter, and we have not failed at Kickstarters. And I think I mentioned to Joe at one point, I was asked to write a book about how to do Kickstarters. And I told them I'm an engineer, and that's a waste of talent.
All you need to do is tell it to someone. They'll make the book for you.
Kanga wins with this one. Sell me this pen.
Ghostwriter? Should I get a ghostwriter?
Yes, exactly. Sell me this pen.
Idea. You know, I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
I should do
there you
that.
go.
Do you want to be that guy?
No.
Can you write?
That's not me. I don't write anything.
I love writing, but
yeah,
you know, I write enough website copy.
This is a good one. Send nodes. Great one, True Voice of Reason. All right, everyone. Make sure you go.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Tommy. Always wealth of knowledge with you on the show. Make sure you go to the main HiFi Summit page, go to the top to exhibitors, then scroll down, click on Cherry, and then click here to enter the meeting. And Tommy will be there to answer some more questions for you guys. And then don't forget, after that is done, or if you want to keep both open, click on VIP area at the very top, and then click to join the video chat. We'll all be in there. I guess afterward. So yeah, that concludes day 1 of the HiFi Summit 2021 Q2. Thank you so much, Tommy.
Thank you, everybody.
Don't hit leave studio.
I'm